Great.
Okay, good day, everyone. Good day. My name is Siponkosi. Um, I'm going to be chairing the meeting today. I want to welcome everyone for attending this meeting today of subject. We are going to be looking at a very important topic today, homecoming from leadership Sandile Swana. Before that, let me just say, South African Leadership Gentlemen's Club is South African Leadership Club is a men's club that is meant to put men back to the Garden of Eden in terms of leadership, in terms of being the visionary for the house, in terms of being the leaders in what God has ordained them to be. We are here as men to remind the men to say you are not a trash, but you are a very important and integral part of the society, and your role is to provide leadership in the community. We can see now how the whole mess that we see in the national level, at the governmental level, because the man has lost his position in the family, and we've outsourced our role as the fathers, as the husbands, as the community leaders in what we do. And I want to encourage everyone to be part of the subject team. You go to the South Africa www.salgc salgc.org and register to be a member of it. We are not only men are members of the club, but we have a club, what we call a desk called Friends of the Club, whereby women are part of the club to assist the club and the gentlemen to lead in a way that is acceptable to their families and to their homes. They shape the direction on which the club takes, and they become the resources in the club. Today we've got a very important person in the, and he's also, I want to mention that he's also the leader in our subject. He's an advisor to the board of subject, Mr. Swana. Let me start by reading his biography. I mean, he's not a stranger to this club. He's been here many times to present uh, his knowledge, share his time, share his knowledge, share his resources with the club to make sure that the men benefits in the club, and we grow men in our society. Let me read his profile. Sandile Swana has been in private business since 1996. He presently runs Sable Assets, a software engineering and management consulting and training company. He completed a BCom degree at VETS in BIS and economics, a BCom honors in logistics from UNISA, and an MBA at UP. He consults widely on risk management and good governance, and has taught part-time on the subject at VETS Business School and Vets School of Governance since 2007. He also completed the BT, BTech and BTH and BTH honors in Christian leadership and ethics at UNISA. He's an accredited preacher of the Methodist Church of Southern Africa. Sandile has two adult children and one grandson. Sandile is married to Boni and is a Sowetan by birth and lives in Mogale City. So that is, we can see that the caliber of leaders that Saljek and speakers that Saljek brings to the table is people that have a know-how and also are very integral and important stakeholders in their what we call in their space and in their craft. Today we are talking about homecoming. There's a lot of questions about what is homecoming. I mean, it can be anything. It can be in subject. Maybe we can look at to say a man must come back home and be the person that he's supposed to be. It can also mean that to say we've outsourced a lot of things. Maybe we need to go back home. Some of us have left our homes to come and be in Gauteng. We are not going back home. People that get married, there's something that says there's a scripture that says a man will leave his parents and join to his wife. Are we talking about homecoming being men that needs to come back to their families and their parents? Leadership Swana is here to answer that question. As I'm unmute him, ask him to unmute. He's going to give us a lecture in this homecoming. Leadership Swana, thank you very much for coming through and for being the person that you are, and always providing your skill, your knowledge, your research, well-researched topics to the club. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome you. The stage is yours. Bless us today.
Siyabonga. Good afternoon to the leadership of SALGC, and thank you, Mr. Nkosi and Brother Bo over there. Let me, are you ready to put up the presentation? You can put it up straight away. So we will start putting up the presentation, but I want to give context as well to, can you allow us to share the presentation? We have a small presentation that would like to share. On the question at hand, Nkosi, can you allow us to share on our side?
Yes, I've made you a co-host now. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, it looks like we're struggling with the presentation now. Just a moment. So anyway, let me be talking in the meantime whilst they are trying to put up the presentation. The basis of the presentation and how it happened was that I was approached by Bo after we'd had two engagements at my house, and there was a feeling in those engagements that, you know, we need to be back and rooted as human beings, not just men, but as human beings. But obviously, today we are talking about men. When you talk about the rootedness of men, a lot of people, for instance, have a tendency to say, I'm going home, and then they travel to KZN to say they are going home. Others say, I'm going home, then they go to Limpopo, and so on and so forth. But actually, when you look at this topic of going home, it's not strictly only about South Africa. All over the world, this idea of people getting more rooted geographically on earth, and also to the old wisdom of our elders, how they used to live in a much more fruitful and much more affordable lifestyle, successfully so. So what then homecoming becomes is simply to say you can actually enjoy the lifestyle, the entire lifestyle that can be enjoyed in the rural areas, and also at the same time enjoy the lifestyle that can be enjoyed in the urban areas. And there are methods of doing that. So, as I said, this movement is not happening only in South Africa. It is happening in Canada, in India, in Europe, and many other African countries, so that you can be rooted in the lifestyles and the wisdom of the ages, and how you relate to the natural resources and so on. So we're going to give you examples. We'll start a step-by-step process. Let's move on. The general context of what we're going to talk about. In many parts of the world, many young professionals are choosing a rural, sustainable digital lifestyle. Now, first point, many are creating smart villages or smart rural homes where bigger space, internet connectivity, green energy, especially solar power, local food production, and highly affordable lifestyles are very possible. Last night, in fact, I had a meeting with the #1 property analyst in South Africa. And he told me that their research so far has shown them that during this time of the pandemic, the people who've been working for the major corporates were told to stay at home. But what is happening is that when people started, when they look at overall lifestyle, people are investing less and less in renting office space or buying offices, and more in their homes. People are buying bigger homes. People are realizing that the future is about spending more time at home in the future. So this thing of saying in a congested townhouse or congested flat with your whole family in the hope that you are going to spend most of your time in the office has proved that right now during COVID, it's not going to work. And investments, people are either expanding their homes or buying bigger homes, and others are moving to rural areas to live there because they've proved that they can work without actually going into the office. COVID-19 has educated many people that they do not need to be in a congested apartment or office in a polluted and congested urban area. Fresh thinking about the circular economy, regenerative economy, and digital economy informs the possibility of financial and economic viability of a rural, healthy, prosperous, and eco-friendly lifestyle. So I've put a reference there of how smart villages are created, which is what we believe is the future direction that all of us, a lot of us are going to move into. I also live in the village of Mulder's Drift on a small farm there. I live a rural lifestyle, almost completely off the grid by now, but we'll get into that later on. Let's move on. In our rural areas, many are investing in sizable properties, although without a proper philosophy. What I'm showing you there is a picture of properties in Venda, the types of properties that people are building at Venda, enjoying a very open lifestyle without all the higgy-haga of contending with all sorts of charges from the municipality, rates and taxes, this, that, and the other. Right there in the village, you can have something that you can truly enjoy at a very affordable cost. Let's move on. Now, again, I'm showing you a portion of advertisement here from Pam Golding, one of the estate agents. But there are more of these types of researches and commentaries out there. Country living is not new. It has been a prestigious enterprise for the rich for some time. Now, this is directly from one of the advertisements of Pam Golding, one of the top estate agents in South Africa. With its abundance of greenery, close-knit communities, and relaxed atmosphere, country living offers an authentic village feel like no other. The friendly people and wealth of outdoor activities, which include fishing, swimming, and hiking, create a wonderful environment in which to raise children. You can imagine the type of child that you produce when you raise them out in the open spaces compared between apartments in the suburbs of Johannesburg or the congestion of Soweto or Alexander. Or spends one retirement, not only to be used as a permanent home. So these country homes, and this is just one version of the story. These country homes can be used as a permanent home, or country properties can also serve as great weekend or holiday homes for those who wish to escape the busy city life. This is another advert from Pam Golding. This is a 4-bedroom house for sale in Underberg, 2.1 million, F-size, 7 hectares. Now that would be very roughly 7 rugby fields worth of land. That's where your children can be running wild. This particular one has got energy supplied by Eskom, the rates and taxes on that 7 hectares is 1,760 per month. Let's move on. I'm showing you that this type of living out there is actually already happening in various guises. I mean, maybe I need to add that for me, I can enjoy all the amenities of rural life without returning to my ancestral land of the Eastern Cape. I'm enjoying it here in Mogale City in Mulder's Drift quite all right. Now, what is it involved in creating your own sustainable country home? What do you do? How do you go about it? You can get a land from a tribal authority, and as you know, those who've got experience, and my friend here, Brother Poe, went there to Dinukeng and got a land. I didn't ask him how much he paid, but usually you don't even pay more than 30,000 for a piece of ground in the rural areas. Gauteng also has rural areas like Mulder's Drift, where I am, Heidelberg, Randfontein, Midrand, Centurion, etc. I've got a cousin who's got a small holding in Midrand, Glen Austin, lives on a small farm there. This is what you do. Get your home hooked up to wireless internet, and there are many of those companies. Like here, I don't have a wire for a telephone. I don't have a wire for an internet that comes to my house. There are no wires on the roads here. So I am completely on a wireless internet. As I am addressing you doing this presentation, it's a wireless internet. The electricity while using is solar power. So I've got a solar power system. I don't have Eskom, any type of Eskom on my yard. Number two, you can get your own borehole water and rainwater harvesting system or municipal water. For now, I've got municipal water from the municipality, although I don't have sewage from the municipality. I've got my own sewage system. You can get a solar power with batteries, which I have. You can make biogas. So whatever comes out of the toilets and the compost of vegetables and other things, you can use that to generate biogas and eventually use that for cooking, and also put on a backup generator for yourself. You can grow your own food and eat healthy and stay healthy. Now, let me then explain to you the Western lifestyle. I'm on point D on the presentation. The Western lifestyle, the economy of the West post-World War II, is that basically to create the economy, what they did is that they moved people to the suburbs, gave them enough money to be able to pay a bond, to pay the car installment, to pay the higher purchase on the appliances in the house, taking a fridge, a higher purchase, furniture. So your salary is enough to pay all of those things and buy some groceries, and also all sorts of junk food, processed foods. Then you fall sick, you've got hypertension, you've got all sorts of things because you're eating all this junk food. Then they put you on medical aid. Then they put you on chronic medication, which you must buy every month. So most of us listening here, because we've been living the American and Western lifestyle, most of us, we are spending at least 200 to 1,000 rand on chronic medication with diseases that are simply caused by your lifestyle and your diet. So the lifestyle that we're proposing when we talk about homecoming is that you grow your own food, eat healthy, and stay healthy. Food is medicine. When you eat junk, your body is going to be junk, your mind is going to be junk, you're just going to be weak. Now, point E, in many areas, you can hook up with neighborhood and farm watch systems and secure yourself. As an example, on my road here, we've got our Road Property Owners Association. We've got a deal with the security company. They provide us drones to patrol our area, all sorts of things like that through agreement. For instance, you know, we pay 550 and it includes the drone patrol. I mean, as an association, the services we want as an association. So we negotiated a special for security for all the households that are here. So that is the types of things that you get there. I mean, you don't sit down on your rear end. I'm the chairman of the Property Association. I helped to found it and I'm running it. So you do things so that your lifestyle and quality of life is secure. F, you can reduce your monthly running costs. So mina nje most of the time akuphela inyanga, to be honest, the only liability for now that I have is to be the rates and taxes for my farm, and then I also pay for water. Lights are my own lights that I have. Every other thing is my own. Let's move on. Then this concept can go bigger than one household. It can become a village. So for instance, now that boy is up there near Dinukeng, the whole philosophy of life that we're discussing today can actually be communicated to the village council and so on. And it's already happening all around the world, this thing I'm showing you. And then create not only a smart home for yourself, but a smart village. So there are certain things you need to do if you want to live in a smart village or to create a smart village. Create a smart and sustainable drinking water and sewage system. And there are ways of doing that. Systems of boreholes, systems of harvesting rainwater, and systems of refilling the aquifers underground from where the water that appears on your borehole, those aquifers, if you've got surplus rainwater, for example, you can deliberately channel it back into the aquifer so that you can use it later. You can also clean up and reuse the water from your sinks, your baths, and so on. So there are systems for that. B, create a local food supply, including growing, harvesting, and storage and selling. In other words, you can produce things, including vegetables, eggs, and all sorts of things. You can store some, but if you have surpluses, you also create an infrastructure for selling the surplus and getting it out of your area and making the money to come in. As an example, I started saying I'm going to keep eggs there, chickens, and produce eggs for myself, just on a very small scale. I mean, I'm now getting 60 eggs per day. I can't eat 60 eggs per day. So I now got customers who want free range eggs. That was not my original plan, but I'm now there, and I'm not going to say no to money. Create a system for reusing, repurposing, and recycling all waste material. Creating new products, extracting and reusing raw materials and energy to waste solutions. In other words, talking to the guys in Soweto, those of you who know Soweto, if you come through to Dobsonville, that side, there's a big mountain. It's now a mountain of rubbish there. But if you go to Addis Ababa is now producing 1/3 of its electricity by burning its rubbish, about 75% of its rubbish, and making electricity with it. So even in your own village that you mobilize and create, rubbish can be used to generate electricity. Products, plastics, and other things can be used to make other types of products, and so on and so forth. That is recycling and repurposing. So even here at my home, I believe now I have 3 bins in my own home. 1 bin is for compost, organic matter, another bin for tins, and then another bin for paper and other things like that. And then my workers, for their own profit, are recycling anything that is metallic, tins and things like that. They take it and go and sell it. But we are organized in that way as a family. And then create cheap and widespread access to the internet, computers, and other ICT services, including libraries and knowledge services. For instance, in today's environment, the first thing is that people must have cheap Wi-Fi, and those things can be negotiated and agreed with service providers if you are a village. And then once you've done that, you are able to say for very affordable fees, create a digital library. There are already digital libraries where you can get access to 7,000 books for a very small subscription fee. And textbooks, university level textbooks on all sorts of subjects that kids can actually use to learn widely, even in the village. Let me emphasize this point. If something happens, let's say in Kwanongo, an event happens there, there's a big political development or something happens, the person in Kwanongoma and the person in Durban and elsewhere, I get where I am here in Malden Street, I get that information within minutes. So I can study it and I can issue public comment on it. So even if you are in the rural area, with technology, ICT technology, you can be on par with a chap who's in the most expensive house in Sandile. You get exactly the same information with the same speed, same accuracy, everything, and you are therefore competitive. E, create an innovation hub for manufacturing, precision agriculture, digital rural medicine. A lot of our communities don't have innovation hubs, right? And I can say this because, I mean, some years ago, and I'm still going to read to this, I used to have a computer laboratory and where we just used to experiment and develop different types of software for different types of industries with young engineers. Now you can go beyond just software. You can develop computers themselves. You can develop solar panels, but create a space where people can tinker and actually hack around and create products that are going to be able to improve the lifestyle from the local environment. Some of you may not know that big ICT companies like, for instance, Bill Gates' company, Microsoft, I mean, you don't even know, it's read something, the name of that town, somewhere there in the bushes of California. Elon Musk, who is now the greatest inventor in the world for the time being, you find that he actually establishes his laboratories in the villages, in an unknown town with a little known name, little village somewhere, and he then can do his work quietly and successfully. Another thing to make a village a smart village, open the local economy for trade and exports, right? So you can trade amongst yourself, trade amongst the local villages that surround your village, export to the towns, export to the surrounding countries, export to China, export to the US. Now, once you start to have educated people like yourselves, the people who are listening to this talk, living in those areas, it's possible to organize this because you know exactly how to organize trade deals internationally. G, regenerate the natural environment, heritage, and tourism. A lot of areas have got very, very high potential tourism products that are totally undeveloped and heritage issues. For instance, I don't even know today where I would have to go and look at the Pedi heritage, look at the history of the likes of Sekukune and so on and so forth. I don't even know where to go. You know, you sit there somewhere in a hotel in Limpopo and somebody tells you an isolated story. Where do I get the full story about the people of Limpopo? The different ones, obviously, depending which region you are at. Create a credible logistics and passenger transport system, including e-commerce platforms. I'm staying here now, where I am. When you get to my house, you drive on a gravel road, Uber comes to my gate, comes to us and picks up a passenger and take the passenger to the airport. We order things on the internet. If I want a trouser, I order it and it is delivered here inside the yard, here where I am. But the opposite can be true. I can be able to say I'm selling free-range eggs, put it on the internet, and then have somebody who's going to pick up the eggs and go and deliver them to whoever needs the eggs. Some of the farmers are already doing this. I order small chickens, little chicks. They say, no, you order a box costs so much extra to be delivered to your doorsteps. You don't need to go anywhere. The whole thing will come to you. Because you guys are educated and you have experience in the business world, in the village, you can set up these things. Some of them, you don't even need to leave your room to set these things up for the start village economy to actually get stimulated and started through the internet and other things like that. Let's move on. Now, another thing that we need to consider is that when you talk about this homecoming, our thinking needs to be comprehensive. Some people today will boast that we've got wind power. Others will boast that we've got solar power. Others will boast that we've got a very nice sewage system. But when we are thinking about starting a sustainable smart village, your thinking must be comprehensive. It must cover all aspects. So if we're looking now, my eyesight may not be as good because now I've moved to a smaller device. I may not see everything as clearly. But some of you where you are, you may have better eyesight than me. But I'll touch on a few things that I think I can also remember. So as an example, it says that technology, in other words, all these things contribute to making a smart, sustainable village. Technology. In this particular slide, they talk about ICT technology that is appropriate for rural applications. So you need to be aware that things like precision, high precision agriculture, you know that you can fly a drone on top of plants, and that drone, as it moves on top of the plants, it can target certain sick leaves and destroy those, or target certain plants and say those plants need water. Those plants have too much water. So all of those types of things cause you to be precise, and they are very cheap, by the way, to be very precise, accurate, and highly productive with little wastage of resources. But I want you to understand that technology is not just ICT technology. Technology is technology. Any type of a car is technology. A vaccine is technology. Technology is technology. So you must not be confined only to ICT technology. On the right-hand side, I will just touch on some of these things. On the right-hand side, you've got living. For instance, things like security. Where I am, for instance, I have all kinds of security systems, deliberately so, because angifuni ukugwajiswa ibhari la ngivuse ebusuku. So you'll find that I've got cameras with night vision and motion detection and all sorts of things, all sorts of technologies that enable me to detect threats at a very early stage, on top of the other social arrangements that we've made. Resources, right? You have natural resources, you have financial resources, you have human resources. As Lalin, in some of these rural areas, you've got stockfields, you've got almost Nwabani, but all those financial resources are not put to proper good use because abantu bethu economics, economy, business development abakayifundi kahle. But the people who are listening here today can say, yes, you can have your masturabani, but whilst your money is idle, it can be deployed to actually cause a lot of development to happen whilst you are getting good returns out of it. Village services, such as essential services, what would those be? There are technologies of developing village-wide, up to maybe sometimes 500,000 people being put on pipe sewage, on waterborne sewage, on a ferry, maybe 20–30% of the cost, what it would cost a city like Mogale City to do. The technologies are old, they are mature, they are proven technologies to do such things, which can be done in the village. I don't have it for a village here, but I've got my own sewage system that I've built myself, installed it, and it works like a dream right here. It's not a Mogale City sewage system that I'm using here. Tourism, as I told you, a lot of the places outside of town here have got tremendous tourism potential that is undeveloped. Governance systems and so on, to say, do we know how decisions are made in this village? And so on. And ICT can help you to know what is happening and what decisions have been made or what decisions need to be made. So all that this picture tells you is that when we are now thinking not just about your home, but thinking about the village as a whole, there is a combination of things that you need to be developing. And this doesn't happen overnight. I've been working on my own property, and it's not a village, it's just my own property since 2011, developing it. Let's move on. I want you to be aware that this thing that we're talking about is happening at the start of a golden age, an age of enormous prosperity. We're going to enter an age of enormous prosperity, which is called the ICT Golden Age. And it is green, it is going to be green, smart villages. Green, smart villages can provide a full suite of technology-enabled services. So, and it's already happening, as I said, there in the European Union, there's policy, there are manuals, there are guidelines of how to run a smart village. In India, 6,000 villages are involved. In Africa, there are many others that are happening, right? So digital technologies can be applied to many aspects of living and working in rural areas. And the smart village concept suggests the adoption of smart solutions in both the public and private sector over a wide range of policy fields, such as improving access to service, developing short food supply chains. In other words, I don't need to eat an orange that comes from Cape Town. I can have an orange. In my case, I do have oranges that come from my own garden. That is a short supply chain. I plant it there and I go walk a short distance and pick it and eat it. Developing renewable energy sources. The sun comes up in the morning, my solar panels charges my batteries and we use the electricity. It goes down. In the morning, it comes up with a full strength again. It's not finished. The sun is not finishing. But the coal that Eskom is using, every time they dig it out of the soil, they don't know how to replace that coal that they've taken out of the soil. And I mean, I'm on WhatsApp groups here in my area, and my neighbor has got a noisy generator. I know when they've got a power outage, when this generator runs and starts making noise, then I know Eskom has switched them off. And then the other time, last week, he was off for 2 days, 48 hours exactly. Because there was a fault, Eskom did a bad job. These things are getting stolen, all sorts of things are like that. So again, the guidelines for smart villages, I've put a website reference there for those of you who want to read more about those things. Let's move on. Now, another thing that I want to alert you to, the idea of smart villages. This is a fine print, but maybe some of you can see it. But you will notice at the top of the slide that by November 2013, South Africa was already involving itself in smart villages. So you can see in the write-up, the poor rural communities in South Africa benefiting from a new initiative using solar power and internet to provide health and education. So-called smart villages are made up of shipping containers and other self-contained high-tech trucks kitted out as health centers and schools, all running on solar power. They can be moved hundreds of kilometers to remote location. A recently opened smart school in the isolated Midrand area provides this student with a computer and internet access. Now, we're not saying these are perfect examples. Everything when it's starting, it is not perfect. But what I wanted to show you with this slide is that what we are saying, South Africa, the comrades who are leading the country and other people in the captains of industry, by 2013, they were already starting trying to implement smart villages. In as much as their ideas may not have been complete or clear, but it has started. By now, it should have been maturing and getting much stronger. And I think with meetings such as this one and other initiatives in the country, indeed, the thing will move forward. The last point there, the medical center, which also runs on solar power, provides eye, ear, and dental care, as well as state-of-the-art analysis, is it bioanalysis, blood analysis facilities, so meaning that actually, and it goes further, and I will touch on these things, that actually a doctor sitting at Grooteskier Hospital in Cape Town, you have a smart clinic in Thohoyandou, somewhere in the villages there. And the person enters the room, the doctor is sitting in Cape Town, and the video is looking at the person. The doctor is asking questions and doing a diagnosis. And when you have a wound or whatever, the doctor can say, bring closer to the camera, let me see, let me see. And the doctor can do a whole diagnosis and make prescriptions, the recommendations of what must be done whilst he's sitting in Cape Town and dealing accurately with a payment, with a client who is actually in Thohoyandou. And some of our doctors here in South Africa have been supervising surgery, whilst eye surgery, sitting in Umtata, supervising a surgery in Limpopo, or supervising sometimes a surgery as far as Sweden, sitting at the University of Transkei because of ICT. So not only can the rural people now provide services to major urban centers from the rural base, but the rural people themselves can also participate and get services through these technologies. Now, another thing that there's a big debate, this slide, I put it in here because there's a big debate in South Africa about this sustainable energy. I've got nothing to say about coal and nuclear power. I think all of those things must continue, but there are certain things we must be careful about. This slide tells you that the Ford Motor Company of Southern Africa's factory in Silvertown, some of you already know about this, is getting a massive 13.5 megawatt solar system. They will make it one of the largest solar photovoltaic PV, that means photovoltaic systems installed at a factory worldwide. So the largest solar system, if you like, of this nature in the world will be here in South Africa in Silvertown. And we're talking about something that is going on as we speak. The system will have solar carports enough to cover 4,200 parking bays. The PV plant will cost that amount of money. This means the grid-tied project will come in at about 50.64 cents dollars, which is pretty impressive for a carport system. Now, the last point I want to is in red ink. The Ford Motor Company of Southern Africa wants to have the factory fully self-sufficient and powered by 100% green energy by 2024. This is 2021, meaning in 3 years' time, that factory of Ford, that is to the north of Pretoria and Silverton, will not be using Eskom. It will have its own power. Now, if Ford can run a whole factory like that on solar power, where now with your home or your little farm there, why can't you do it? Because we've had all sorts of engineers and all sorts of companies saying it can't be done. It is already being done. Let's move on. So you can see the pictures of what is being done in Pretoria. Energy self-reliance. So, I mean, I have said this to some of my neighbors here and some of the people who live in shacks. Ukuthi siyalwa labanye baze bashisa amathaya, others are burning tires in the street, bathi balwela ukuthi akufakwe u-Eskom emkhukhwini. Ngithi u-Eskom uyashona uyaphela yena self when ufuna ukuyongena kule nto ephelayo. When there are other technologies that are of the future that we should be busy with. Certainly at a person, when people are busy complaining ukuthi abana gesi, ngithule ngithethe ngidle lapha ngisuthi ipalish lami ngihambe ngiyolala. Another example, and I want you to be aware of this, it's similar to Ford, but maybe some of you may have missed it. Mining companies in South Africa are considering spending as much as 40 billion to construct 2,000 megawatts of power generation capacity, said Roger Baxter, Chief Executive Officer of Mineral Council South Africa. Mining companies have been pushing to develop their own power plants because of persistent power cuts imposed by the state power utility Eskom. Those plans have been given impetus by this year's decision by the government to allow construction of plants of up to 100 megawatts capacity. So what is happening? The mining industry is now becoming power generators, and they are going to spend that amount of money to say, Eskom besikunikile umthwalo ukuthi uthwale ukwehlule sothwala ngokwethu, and they are going for solar power. Now, I've presented what I'm about to say to the SALGA, the municipalities before. That word that I've put, the name, sorry, I'll call it a word now. It's a name, Duncan Mara. He's one of the best engineers and researchers in creating large, very affordable sewage systems that can be used to create smart villages. Proven technology. Now, I talk about smart village sewage. the roads that were once littered, this is talking about one village in India. So they are talking about what they've achieved in India. The roads that were once littered with waste and faced rampant open defecation. Open defecation, it's called open defecation. Are clean and lined with lush trees. The village is lit with solar lights, boasts of puka homes painted in uniform colors, a skill development center, a meditation center, and even a public library. That village was once littered with waste, and you would be walking and there would be people's defecation all over the show, and the picture has now changed. Danora is an adashgram in adashgram where every household in the village has a toilet with running water, like I have here, access to concrete roads, sewage treatment plant for waste management, and the property demarcations. In other words, the village has now, whereas all of those things are new philosophies, new ways of thinking, and actually uplifting that standard of living in the village. If you look at the bottom of the slide, there are websites there with detailed manuals. That one, I think, is that one in the last one there at the bottom, that is Duncan Mara himself, talking about how to create a powerful sewage system that can be probably 30% of the cost that anybody can build in South Africa today. And these things have been proved in many countries, including Pakistan and even North America, in the USA, they've been proved that they work. You can carry at least the biggest one I've seen has been about 500,000 people that this technology can carry. Again, I will not dwell long here. A smart village healthcare. I've already told you how you can create healthcare in the smart village such that the best doctors can be accessible to the smart village through the use of ICT technology. But in the smart village and in the lives that we're now trying to live, the first thing that you want to do is to prevent people by preventing them getting sick, by making sure that they are eating a healthy diet, organic food, free-range food, because the food that you eat is the source of your strength, your intelligence, your health. Everything comes from there. The minute you start eating the American and Western European diets, you are going. Precision agriculture, I've shown you, and this is a very powerful case study. And this organization that makes this case study has done a lot of these things all over the world. But I chose a smaller example, talking about precision agriculture. In Kenya's Lower Nyando Valley, farmers are discovering the value of agroforestry with alleys of maize, sorghum, and other crops sandwiched between the rows of multi-purpose trees that stabilize and enrich the soil. Now, they were taught through science, of course, the villagers, that plant trees first, and then between the trees, plant your vegetables, your maize and millet, and is performing superb. And then it goes on and explains other successful interventions. So when you're talking about smart, you're mixing technology with wisdom, practical wisdom, to actually improve the performance of the village and make the village very, very viable. Now, I am concluding the presentation by showing you some of the things that I've done. I don't know how beautiful the pictures are. On the left-hand side, that is a toilet with waterborne sewage, which discharges into the sewage system that we've created for ourselves on the left-hand side there. So that when you think that now Sandile says he's staying in a village, it means he doesn't have access to such facilities on the left. I do. On the right, when we started here, we planted about 50 fruit trees. To be conservative, I think we've exceeded 60 now. But below the fruit trees, we're planting vegetables. So if I say I want to go and eat oranges, this is where I go and eat my oranges. This is These chickens that you see there, I hope the picture is clear. These ones gives me 60 eggs per day for the time being. By February, I'll be getting 260 eggs per day.
The picture is not there, Mhlegazi.
Yep.
The picture of chickens, Aiko.
Are you watching what I'm showing you?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing my own.
Yes, we
Yeah.
see it now. Yes, it's here.
Yeah, keep looking. Thank you. So those are the chickens. Those chickens are giving me on average about 60 eggs a day. I have received a new order of chickens. So we're going to add close to 200 chickens. So by February, we should be collecting about 260 eggs per day. As I told you, I do these things to be self-sustainable. That ukuthi ngidle like I don't need ukuthi ngincenga uzibani angincengi muntu. Siqhubeke. Ugesi wami ke le ile nto abathi inverter. This is what they call an inverter. I've got two of them. That's 7.2 and 7.2. It gives you 14.4 kVA inverters, and I've got batteries. So that is how my solar system, you can put a nice big machine la, whatever you want to do in the yard, drilling, whatever you want to do, these things can power it. I only need one of these, but for good measure, I put two. Those are my bees. I have 6 for now. I have 6 beehives. They give me 120 bottles of honey every 4 months. Let's move on. Thank you. Let me stop there. I hope I've given you a rough idea.
You are a star. You know, with the bees, I applaud this.
Yeah. Baba. So, good fellows, that's my little presentation for today. I'm sure I could have done better, but it's better than nothing.
Okay. Thank you, Leadership Swana.
You have done exceptionally well, Mangi.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well done, Mr. Swana. That's powerful.
Thank you, Kosaza.
I love the B one. I didn't expect that one in the end. Yes, sis. Impressive.
You should have started with that and give it more time.
Yes,
but you didn't
yeah.
justice to
No, yeah, well
bee
resourced.
farming.
Yes, well resourced.
Leaders, thank you. Can we talk through the chairperson, please, so that we have structured questions that follow? Thank you for the passion. Mr. Ngosi?
Thank you, sir. I think I didn't want to kill the passion. People are very happy about this presentation, so I didn't want to stand in their way. And especially after Mr. Swan said, "Angnenge muntu, you know, case one." But yeah, thank you very much, Babu Uswane, for such a presentation. I think you've reignited, the passion of farm or open spaces living. And if you look at Gakulu, you'll realize that most of us, when we say we want to go on holiday, we are no more going to the hotels, but we go to the open areas, some houses somewhere in the field, because we want to get the fresh air and all those. And you've shown that you don't have to do that on my holidays. You can create such a space for yourselves. This was very powerful, and it talks against to. It was funny because when the last slide, when we were talking about bees, there's a training that Mr. Samuel Likalakala, who's our general manager, is running that project through the SALGC of bees training, and I think it's very powerful. Let me not talk about what I think and what I saw currently. Let me open that to other leaders in here. I can see a hand from Khaupalelwe. Khaupalelwe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Swana. Pleased to meet you. We normally share some thoughts on the Facebook and other platforms, but I can see you are living what you are saying mostly in your platforms and on other communications. But I've got a few questions. Administrator, please guide me, Chair. How many questions can I ask? I think I've got quite a few here for Mr. Swana from the presentation. Please guide me as to should I go through all the questions and or go through two by two. I think it's about 8 questions that I would like to pose. About 8.
8. Let's break
Yeah.
them. Let's say you ask 3 now and see if there are other people who want to ask, and then if not, then we'll give you an opportunity to continue.
I thank you, Chair, for your guidance. Mr. Swana, could you have created us the same lifestyle in Eastern Cape that you are living now in the rural peripheral of Gauteng? That's question number 1. Question number 2, who owns those rural areas or that rural land that you were able to tap into in Gauteng? Question number 3, the estimated cost for this infrastructure that you have put in since 2014 or something, you said something 2011, 2014, I can't remember when you started, but the estimated cost that you put in to have all these sanitation and such like. If you remember what the previous government did, it removed us from fertile land into land that is unfertile, where there is no water, where water is restricted. Obviously, you have managed to get this piece of land in the peripherals of Gauteng, in the rural areas of Gauteng, which I doubt you would have gotten in the rural area, Eastern Cape, where your farm, your family farm is. Just those 3 questions for now. I will come later. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, the direct answer, let me give you the answer in this way. I left the Eastern Cape in 1975. At that time, I was staying on a farm which was granted to my grandfather, like any other villager, like any other villager, by the chief, local chief. On that farm, my grandfather had a plantation. Out of that plantation, we would make poles for making the fences, making any other thing that needed wood. So he had planted that plantation. By around 1948, my father and my grandfather on the same land, they planted about 400 fruit trees on the same plot of ground. So by the time we were there in the 1970s, we're eating that fruit from that land. And then he had the orchard, he had the vegetable patch, a very large one. And then he had his own fields. All of those things were structured in the way that a normal white man's farm would be done. So the way villages are structured today actually is not the way that Africans used to structure their villages. That was imposed. So that farm was dispossessed around 1976, 77. But at the same time, I still have a right, if my relatives were to agree, I do have a right, and any one of us, together with my brothers and cousins, can reclaim that land back to us in terms of the land reclamation and so on, land claims and so on. So in the Transkei today, I mean, my daughter, for instance, still wants to go and get land. I can get land even bigger than what I have here in the Eastern Cape, more specifically in the Transkei. So that is not a problem. Number 2, I must alert you that around 1980, 81, around that time, I was a student in the Eastern Cape in the Libote area of Transkei in a Catholic boarding school. In that boarding school, which was in the village, in the outskirts of Umtata, totally in the village, 100% in the village. We were bathing with piped hot water every morning. That was developed through solar. Solar was already being used in the Christian mission in Libote, Transkei. So you can imagine that in the past 40 years, that technology has advanced. and it should be much more usable today. The land that I have here in Mulder's Drift, it's freehold land. I bought it from one of the local farmers here in the open market at market-related costs. I cannot at this stage say how much money I've paid to develop this part of the property or that part of the property, but I've done it, which means I've afforded to do it, because everything I've done on my property over the years, I only did what I had the money to do with my hard cash in hand. There is no bond on this property. I don't owe anybody. What I cannot do, I don't do. What I can do, that's why this is my land. I've paid for every little thing. This land was not fertile when I bought it. The amount of rock that was on this land was unbelievable. And we've used that rock wisely. If you were to look behind me now, carefully on my picture, which is on the screen, there's a little wall behind me here. That rock that built that wall was mined on this land. And if we were to come to my property, you would be surprised how many large structures we've constructed with the rock that we mined. Now that we have chickens, every time we clean the chicken coop, we use that chicken manure to fertilize the land, to improve the quality of the land. And we also compost things, and we put compost on the land to improve the quality of the soil. I hope I've answered you.
Thank you very much, Sam. I think the solution you are telling us are practical and doable. I mean, some of these things we've done as we grow up, but now we've been brainwashed to believe that town life is better, and yet it's so expensive. You can buy a house today, but if you fail to pay the rates and taxes, that house can be charged and taken away from you because you can't afford to pay the rates and taxes. So I think that's very powerful. Any other questions before I give Ukhaupalelo again? I don't see hands. I think on the comments is mostly compliments to say excellent presentation, Mr. Swana. Someone was saying the Josie life is complicated. We're running towards it because we believe that it's a better life instead of us going back to where we in our rural areas or getting farmland around here still and create all these systems. And let me go back to Ukhaupalelo to continue because I haven't seen another hand as yet. Ukhaupalelo, another set of three.
I thank you, Chair, and thanks, Mr. Swana, for the responses. I think they were practical. You see, I had a family in Venda, and I think this question is repeating itself. I had a family in Venda, and those houses that you showed, I know of them. I have seen them. If you start, my church is in Limpopo, the headquarters of my church is in Limpopo. So Limpopo has started this rural development. Most of those houses don't have the smart village sewer system. And one reason why they don't have the smart sewer, smart village sewer system is because of the question that I asked in my first batch. The limitation to water. There are water encroachment areas in Limpopo. When you start already from Zanin, you'll see those encroachments, and all those areas, you'll see wide settlements around those farms and blah, blah, blah. If you go deeper into the rural Zanin, going towards Venda and those other areas, you will see that Black people's rivers and ravines have dried up because the water has been cut from them. Now, those big houses that you have shown us don't have this sewer system, not because there is no water, but because the white settlers and the other colors that have settled there has cut water. They only allow water to go through when there are floods. So that is the other question. We want this smart village sewer system, but the assumption, the underlying assumption is that there is water. Yes, you can have rain water, which comes only when there's rain, or those boreholes, if you do strike it luck, or you have a good person to detect the water underground and give you that water, but that is not always the case because we have been allocated to places where there is no water. The precision agriculture. Let's assume again, I have to move to Gauteng. You have seen of late, somebody wanted this type of agriculture on his pavement, being fined, I think it's 5,000 or something. We all have our opinions, but that is the mentality around our governance systems. And that brings this fear into us that whenever I want to do something for myself, the capitalist world will forbid me by giving me a fine. My last question, what if your chicken gets sick? Are you a veterinary? Are you a vet? Or do you have a vet friend, or in a village are there vets? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Let's start with the sick chicken. One of the things that you have to understand is that obviously I get a lot of advice from my breeder, person who breeds chickens. And part of the advice that he gives me is about organic medicines. In other words, there are certain herbs that you are able to, some are ready-made, some you can make them yourselves, that actually causes chickens to recover from various ailments. In the time that I've been keeping chickens, there are certain plants, some of them are antiviral plants, some antibacterial plants, such as oregano. Thyme is good for respiratory diseases of the chickens. Aloe is good for gastric health of chickens, and so on. So you learn about organic herbs. You cannot be independent if you are not learning and accumulating knowledge and good contacts, obviously, to get more advice from other people. So that is the first answer. The issue of water, I could have presented more about it, but you will remember that nations like Israel, which are deserts, are selling water. They are exporting water and exporting water technologies. So I have not yet met a case in South Africa where, let alone in Tzaneen or Limpopo, in those areas, where I would be convinced out of hand that there's no water there. What is lacking are water management methods, water technologies, and even the knowledge that you can actually eliminate drought. Another thing that I said in my presentation is the regeneration of the environment. A person needs to be aware that at least in our village, we are planting 10,000 trees every year, this, that, and the other, and planting other types of vegetation to make the environment more water retentive and better water management system. So there's a number of things that people do in water scarce countries. Like Singapore is an island with limited water, and they've had to learn how to create water using various technologies, and they are succeeding in that exercise. So you as educated people, you are not the ones who can come and tell us that there's no water anywhere. Your education should produce that water.
Thank you, Mr. Swana. I think you just also demonstrated to say the solutions are there. We just need to think and apply them, because most of the times I think we focus more on why it can't be done rather than why it must be done. I think you've just summed it nicely. Before I go to Hapale, let me go to Chairperson Bo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Baba Ngosi, and thank you to the presenter, or who he's not a guest. He's a family member here, like I. Great presentation. You can see the presentation is really well made and well researched, and so much has been put in this presentation. Mine is not a question. Mine is just to say thank you to Baba Swana for a great presentation and the tools that he's giving us to start something. And maybe just to to make it clear that when this topic was brought about, it wasn't coming as saying there's no problems when you live in villages, or there's no challenges when you live a kaya, whatever. Here in South Africa, we have ample acres of land, and some of us, or some of you people, babuya makaya. I mean, like only we don't have a kaya skuduki. Asihambi it's Easter or whatever kaya but there's a lot of us also in here who have kohai weekend. The N1 will be packed. We're going to Limpopo and stuff like that, or KZN, as Umhlegas was saying, or any other part of the country where people are going, because land is there in ample acres. So the challenge is, how do we change the mindset? And the mindset change doesn't mean that we are not going to deal with any challenge when you go there. I mean, even the city life itself as is, which nobody says, let's move away from the city, has got its own challenges. But the presentation is meant to open our eyes and say, here is another part of life that we can explore. And it's easy to start it because already we have land. I mean, in Europe, these people don't have land. Majority of them, they come here to Africa. I think I was talking to Mhlegas the other day and saying, the soccer coaches, foreign soccer coaches who come to South Africa, I know a few of them who have bought farms here in South Africa. Few of them who have bought farms, and yes, they bought them from white people, but not here, where there's a land big enough that you can start something with what you have. Thank you so much, Mhlegas, for a great presentation. And what I love most about the presentation also is there's references of where we can go and read for ourselves to equip ourselves. Just like you just said, that if you don't learn something, you'll not be able to do it because you have limited knowledge. For those who are here, please note that if you want this presentation to be shared with you, Mhlegas always share these presentations with us. It will be available. Please send your email addresses to info@salgc.org.za. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Leadership Paul. I think most of what you are saying, it was a comment. I don't think leadership has to respond to that. Let's take the last bite. 2 questions to Khaupalelwe, and I think people normally when there are no questions, it's either people are too confused or people are so impressed that there's nothing to add or ask. Otherwise, they will mess up the whole presentation. Is Khaupalelwe?
Thanks, Chair. I'm also impressed. Don't be misled by my questions. My only reaction is that when I'm impressed, I ask more questions for more clarity. Mr. Swana, last 2 questions: crime rate, and then the controversial statement that you have made that the clever people must make water. I don't know who can make water, because in Congo, as we speak, is it the Nile River that is supposed to give Kenya or somebody hydroelectricity? There is a huge fight. That's why they are saying World War III or whatever 4 is going to be over water, because nobody can create water. Where I can create this smart village, the water there is full of calc. I don't know what is calc in other languages, but that substance, that white substance that remains at the bottom of the bucket when after you have scooped the water. Yes, technology is there to clean that water, I believe, but that is the type of water that I have underground or even from the river. So yeah, it will need some investments and some smart people and some intelligent people to clean that water, because it is drinkable. It's only that it is full of calc. But yeah, you said you don't want to be pazamized by imuhuis or commit crime in your place. But your roads are not manned. So how does an ambulance or the police come to you quickly if the village has not yet decided to maybe tar the road themselves, or somebody start something there? Thank you.
Yeah, as I've said, the issue of security has got many dimensions, and we are working on it. And I think our solutions are working to reduce the crime rate in our properties. And I'm a great believer in technology, by the way. So certainly in my own yard, I think by now I've got probably 95% of the technologies that I believe are relevant for my security here. And also the social technologies of organizing the property owners for security and contracting people. The road, like now, for instance, has been graded. It's a good quality gravel road. It's not inaccessible. It's a very good quality gravel road. It's just been serviced right now. So during the dry season, the road doesn't even need servicing because the water doesn't disturb it. But once the rain starts, you need servicing, and they've just serviced it. It's in very good shape. So the service that we have on the road is that the municipality comes and services the road. That doesn't mean that if we make money, we will not be tarring the road if we make our own money, but we're not at that stage yet. And that is not, ambulances travel well here. My neighbor has had 2 deaths recently and sicknesses. Ambulances went there, the hearses went there, the police go there. It's not difficult, it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leadership Swana. I don't see any other questions. I checked on Facebook.
There's Zingisa there, or Zingisa.
Yes, Zingisa or Zingisa. He will explain to us. Mr. Zingisa. Unmute yourself.
Let me unmute myself.
Yes, thank you.
Mangi, as usual, thank you for your Kupugula ngapha Mangi.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. What I would like to add on, I'm one of those privileged ones to be Ikoduga. I have just spent 1.5 months already at home in Mount Fletcher, or you can call it Matatiel, depending on the boundaries. In that 1.5 months, I have managed to remove kikuk grass from the garden. I didn't go into the fields, not yet, I'm going there. Just in the garden, I have removed kikuk grass. I have put in about 500 plants of spinach. I have put in about 100 plants of millet. I have put in 45 cabbages and about 20 turnips. So I have started a garden there. The next thing that is going to be coming very soon, it is the chicken to lay the eggs. So I'm saying, for those who are privileged like me to have that place called home, and I go to every December as Ikoduga, is enabling me to do what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwale.
Yes.
Thank you for your comment, and I think you also adding to say these things. If you want to do, you can do. It's just you having the will to start
Yes.
do something about it. Sepo.
Thank you, my leader. It's just another comment that I have again. I mean, I'm very passionate about this subject that we're talking about. Umklegas knows that for sure. I normally say, and people say, you're very brave. I mean, how can you leave the city and go decide to have a life outside the city when we're born and brought up here, and all your career you have worked in the city? And a complaint that I find common, Klegas, maybe you'd come in there, is people normally say akuna infrastructure lana, akuna mabone, akuna zindlela ezi-right, amanzi awekho. Those are common statements that I personally get. And what I normally say to people is, can you remember when the white men first came to Africa? Can you just imagine that? They settled here, coming as far as they come from. They just came and settled nicely here. And here we have roads today because somebody decided to settle here. And if you don't go and settle la, you need to settle. And who's going to bring that infrastructure for you? Maybe they needed a golf course, something that is in Europe that we don't have here. They brought a golf course here. Maybe they didn't have a tar road here and they wanted a tar road, which they had in Europe. They brought it here as well. So everything that you need, you can bring to a village and to the land that you have, that your ancestors and your parents probably have left for you. So I don't know if you have a comment on that one, that you don't have to find infrastructure in the way, you can create one. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, I think that where I am now in my yard, this was a wild veld where I had to clear the bush. So you see me, some of you can see some flowers behind me. You see all sorts of things. There's a gas tank here. All this infrastructure here, I put it physically myself. There was nothing, it was wild here. And we continue every day we're putting infrastructure here. By the way, all over Africa, we as Africans have got to put every missing infrastructure. So what we're discussing here has got to happen everywhere in Africa. The infrastructure must come out of us. We are the ones who must create it. So I'm not even worried about that. We can do it.
Thank you, Swana. I think, and throughout your presentation, what I picked up as well, you've shown that the infrastructure builds itself. Brook from the beginning. It is true that people say solar panels, they're expensive, and what is expensive. But if we are to look at the amount of money that we spend in these areas that we stay, that money can be reused to build something that will be a legacy and something that will be good for your health as well. Because if you look at the pollution that we enjoy in these spaces we share, I mean, it's huge. I mean, the area that I stay, every time I wake up in the morning, there's something that smells like sewage, but I know it's not sewage, it's some chemicals around from the factories. I think what you are telling us is to say, if we are willing to do it, it can be done. I don't see any other hands. I think it wouldn't, maybe before that, in the absence of any other hands or any other comment, I think I'll give Mr. Swana a parting word to give us a parting word in this after. I think we appreciate your time and we appreciate, I think there's a question now before that, a question from Bongan in the chat box. A question to Mr. Swana. In your journey that you have just shared with us, what has been the biggest challenge to deal with, e.g., regulations, authority, etc.? Mr.
Swana? Let me first make an administrative announcement. I think, Bo, when you share this presentation, make it a PDF. I have an email, it's too thick because I put too many pictures in it. So make it a PDF when you share. I have not, I mean, I think there have been two challenges that I have had, two greatest challenges. The one was my lack of experience and therefore ignorance and the mistakes that I made. I never had problems with the authorities. The second problem I had was that the project progressed according to how much money I could make. So because I decided not to use the bank's money, so I would work, collect, and I still do that, still going like that till today, because I felt that when are you making your next payment? I was tired.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Swana. Okay. Angihleka leyo ukuthi lokufonela osisi lapho. Bafuna imali yakho. It's very interesting.
If,
Maybe your parting
Eh?
word, maybe your parting word as you conclude. We're closing the meeting because there's no any further engagements. I
Yeah,
see.
I think the biggest lesson in all of this, I'll make it as simple as possible. My wife is from Vosloorus. She grew up there, and then she says, Sandile, it's been a miracle for me what has happened here, because I've never known that I can reach a stage where I don't have to go and buy eggs from the supermarket. I can produce eggs myself here in the yard. It has never occurred at all in my mind. So it was the first time for her to experience that, or even the idea to be present in her mind. So I think a presentation like this and a discussion like this may introduce new ideas of your own personal sovereignty as a person, as a human being, or for the first time to you. But for me, my grandfather introduced that to me, because as little boys would wake up in the morning, me and my little brother, as soon as we were up and running, we said, let's go to the orchard and we eat fruit. By the time our grandmother is offering us breakfast, we're not that interested. But we didn't buy that fruit. Every type of fruit was there. So even now, I have vegetables here all over. I eat them and I don't have to buy them. For my wife, it's a new experience to live a life where you can actually make things and make things for yourself. So now I'm going to get into doppership, keep a few doppership, so that and so on and so forth. I'm outside in my yard. That's why there's a noise in the system. I've got some boys here, Likalakala, that need to be taught how to look after peace. Let me close with that. Thank you very much.
Leadership, because there's a question quickly from Mr. Kalakala. Yeah, he says there's no yeah.
You're breaking back, leadership.
He can't talk. His question, if I can read it, is there is a background noise? Can you please ask Mr. Swana if he's planning to box?
Did you get the question, Mr. Swana?
No.
No, I hear there's a background noise. The background noise is because I'm outside here. There's wind and plants here.
No, he's talking about his own background. That's why he's typing the question. He's asking if he...
so what is the question?
Ask Mr. Swana if he's planning to duplicate what he has done to really create smart village, to make a village life attractive.
Yes, we already making attempts at that. I've been pursuing a partnership with TUT and proposing some smart towns and smart villages to mining companies and so on and so forth. So we are trying that to get it off the ground. And part of that, obviously, is also to give talks like this that some of you can also get going on it.
Wow, thank you very much, Mr. Swan. I think as I close the meeting, I think what your presentation today is interesting. That it touches almost 4 cardinal pillars of the 5 that we have here. The mental liberation of saying, let's see, we can do this in a different way. Let's bring a new thinking and a new thought in what we do. I mean, there's also rebuilding general relationship with our resources, the land, and as you've proven that we are using the land to generate food, because the food that we eat is so much processed that it has lost its real nutrients and what we need. I mean, you've shown that you can create economic opportunities through selling of your excess food, but you've covered yourself from there, and ensuring that there's a revolution and opportunities available although there are challenges, but we are training our youth and ourselves as well to use what God has given us. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for coming through, and we appreciate your input both at the board level and also at the lecture level where you give us this information. We appreciate it. And let me take the opportunity to thank everyone that made the time to come and learn. Let's not only end by learning, let's apply some this knowledge that we get. If we apply about 5%, only 5% of what we learn, I mean, we would be far in life. Let's apply, let's start doing something about it. And I want to take the opportunity to thank everyone, and let all have a blessed week ahead, and let's be the change we want to see in the world. Thank you very much, everyone.